Unfortunately, the job market for Egyptologists is pretty slim depending on what your specialty is within Egyptology. If you want to actually excavate in Egypt and actually work with Egyptian artifacts, there's really only two paths. And that is to either become a professor at a university that either already has an excavation or would be able to fund an excavation in Egypt, or you could work at a museum that already has an Egyptian collection and then also sometimes does sponsored excavations in Egypt. And that's unfortunately just the way that it goes in this field. Egypt is a particularly difficult place to actually go and excavate. You really need those kind of larger sponsors. And even if you are a student in undergraduate or master's, you typically are not going to be able to go to Egypt and excavate yourself. There are exceptions for masters, but really they only take a few PhD students on those select excavations. But let's just say you don't want to do excavations and you just want to continue to be a researcher or a historian. Unfortunately, universities and museums are pretty much only going to be those employers for Egyptologists. In very rare cases, there are kind of Egyptian education centers, either in Egypt or outside of Egypt, like the Egypt Center in Wales, which I've been dying to go to. It's a really awesome organization that's kind of half museum and half education center, but I'll probably say this, you probably need a PhD to become a university professor or a high-level curator at one of those museums, or even just a researcher. In some more rare cases, some universities will hire specific research positions that are contracted or short-term, but this is kind of a difficult thing that Egyptology itself doesn't have that many job prospects unless you want to go into things that I've already mentioned, which is why I hate to say it, you see me here on social media talking about it when I don't work at a university or a museum. Technically, I don't work in Egyptology minus doing what I do here and on Twitch. The museum that I currently work at has nothing to do in Egyptology, but I am able to take a lot of my knowledge from both museums and archaeology to those jobs. So this is unfortunately sometimes why it is better to go a little bit more general if you are thinking about schooling and like majors. There are ways to go to a school university that have a more general major, but then focus on Egypt within that major. You do not necessarily have to go to a university that offers an Egyptology degree. I did not until I got into my master's. And looking back, while I am very grateful for the things that I got out of that master's, I kind of probably should have done something more general like public archaeology, public history, museum studies, and then found a university specifically that already has maybe an Egyptologist or already has an Egyptology program that then I could take some classes to kind of make that my specialty within one of the more broader fields. By doing a more general program that will make you more hireable by other organizations or other museums. For example, my degree is in archaeology, which is why I work at a museum that talks a lot about archaeology, even though it is a completely different time period to ancient Egypt. Archaeologists are hired to do a much wider range of things, and you don't necessarily have to be familiar with the time period that you are excavating, especially if you're something like a field technician. If you want to rise in that job, you're going to have a specific time period that you sort of specialize in. I hope this makes sense, and I really hope that this doesn't discourage you from studying Egypt. I am just unfortunately being realistic and wishing that essentially making a statement of what I wish I heard when I was going into my master's and when I was figuring out what I wanted to do, because I didn't realize until halfway through my master's that I didn't want to go the PhD route. I didn't want to go to the university or the larger museum route, and I wanted to go into education. So I'm trying to give the advice to past Melissa that would have really helped me now.